The Jesus Trilogy, Book 1, The Four Messiahs, Chapter 6. It's about 6 blocks from the city gate to the center of town. Boy, that sure hits the spot. Rough day? The stranger asked a standard bar question. The answer was already evident in Shimei's eyes. Just the usual, days run together after a while, Shimei said. Yes, I know the feeling, the stranger concurred. You don't look familiar, Shimei said, eyeing the stranger more closely. Shimei's huge hand gripped the glass, and he took another long pull. Nahor out of Samaria, the stranger said. He too was a large man, 30-something, and appeared to be in good physical condition. What brings you up this god-forsaken town? Nazareth was nicknamed the armpit of Judea. There was a good reason for that, Shimei knew. He longed to get away to the big city, or at least away from Nazareth, but money was money. He had never made so much as last year. Just up on business, Nahor said. Ask me another bartender. Shimei sloshed this glass down with one swig. That's better, and he let out a deep belch. Excuse me. Quite all right, my friend. Glad to see your health has improved. Nothing like a bit of the bubbly, I always say. Nahor smiled. Say, where'd you say you was from? Shimei tapped the bar, indicating he needed another. Sidon, was it? No, not so lucky. Up from Samaria. Sidon was a big seaport city, while Samaria was a town of about 35,000, halfway between Nazareth and Jerusalem. Where you stand? Shimei asked. Down at the Silver Shekel. The Silver Shekel was one of 3 inns in town and the nearest to the tavern. It even had a little casino. But the restaurant had lost its liquor license the year before for what was said to be sale to a minor, but the gossip was that the Romans set up the owner. So the townsfolk and the travelers all used mash. Best inn in town, ain't that right, Mashy? Shimei raised his voice. It startled the old man in the corner booth. What's the matter, sonny? Mashy's voice cracked as the 20 or so customers looked around. Go back to sleep, you old fool, Shimei said. Now look here, sonny, who you calling an old fool? Mashy's voice was louder now. If I was your age, I'd take you out and whop you. Mashy got up from his corner bench and slid onto the stool next to the hulking Shimei. You couldn't whip a parrot with one leg, the bartender chimed in. Watch your mouth, boy, Mashy shot back. Quit bothering the customers, you old windbag, Deke told him. Deacon Thomas ran his old uncle's bar. Mash had inherited the restaurant from his father, but times then became difficult. Competition from the new inn, the Silver Shekel, had cut business in half, so 3 years ago, Thomas, back from a stint in the army, had agreed to manage the place for a while. They converted it into more of a bar and less of a restaurant. Deke doubted it would fly, but when the Shekel lost its liquor license, bingo, Mash business took off, so Deke stayed on. Another round, Deke, and pour one for the old man here, Shimei said in his booming voice. He put a huge arm around old Mash. I'm warning you, sonny. Daddy's home, Rachel announced. He'd had a good day. Old Barnabas had offered him a nice salary, more than he'd ever made, even in his best year. 17 years he'd been making a living as a carpenter, 10 of them as a master. It would mean changes in his life. He'd have to go down to Barnabas' shop 5 days a week. He could see the kids a little less, but the extra money would really help. He could catch up with taxes, maybe even put away a little in savings. He had none at the moment, and so he wanted to start up a college fund. Jed was 9, but did well enough in school. And Rachel, she deserved everything life had to offer. In his present situation, that couldn't happen. And of course Mary, dear Mary, she had been a godsend. Maybe she could go to college also. She was so good about everything, even when he couldn't pay her. She never complained. If he got the money, maybe he could help Mary go to college, but then he would lose his babysitter. As it was, he needed her to work full time for now. But he didn't know what she would say to that. They had only touched on it briefly. Why were there always so many questions in life? He didn't know. He had the feeling some of them were soon going to be answered in the positive. "Hi, babe, how you doing?" he said to Rachel. "I'm learning to be a carpenter," she said, a hammer and a nail in her hand. She was doing her own imitation of her dad. Mary was bending over the tub scrubbing some dishes from lunch. "Hi, Mary, I got some terrific news. Barnabas offered me a job. Isn't that great?" "Sure," she said blandly, not looking up. "He offered me more than I've ever made, ever." "That's nice," Mary said, still not looking up. "Just one thing. I need to work from 8 to 5, 5 days a week, and an occasional weekend. That shouldn't be too often. Only if old Barn has a rush job," he continued. "I was wondering if you could work here full time. The kids love you, and I think the world of you," Barn said to let him know in a week. "I don't know, Joseph." She hesitated as she finally looked up. She had been crying and looked wiped out. Joseph picked up on it, but said nothing. She then ran into the other room, grabbed her bag, and ran out the front door. Joseph played with the kids. He hadn't been so happy in many months. The job would be hard, and he'd have to do some work on the side at home, but maybe, just maybe, he could get caught up and start building for the future of his children. Had he said something to upset Mary? She probably was just having a bad day. He'd talk to her tomorrow. He knew it would all work out. It had to.